Awesome. Ankita, where are you joining us from?
I'm currently in the Bay Area.
Awesome. And all the way from India, right? You're traveling for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm based here half the time.
That's awesome.
So yeah, right now I'm here for the next 2 months, and then I kind of go over to London and then back to India.
That's incredible. Well, Ankita, thank you so much for coming back and doing a part two with us. For everyone who's here and who hasn't gotten a chance to take a look at like some of the previous workshops we've hosted with Ankita, do take the time to go back into our archives and our recordings. If not, don't worry, we'll be sending out the recap again. Just some quick intro. I am Naimisha, founder of Products by Women. I'm also a product manager by profession. And yeah, you can I'd love to connect with you all on LinkedIn. So please do be sure to send me an invite. Yeah, some quick housekeeping, because we're going to have a bunch of people joining us for the first 30 minutes. We do not have the option of you being able to share your screen or share your video. And but do feel free to drop your questions all along, and we will be getting to it at the end of the session. This session is being recorded, and we will be sharing it with you all after the session. So don't feel like you have to be taking notes. And with that, today, I mean, I think Ankita has like a lot prepared, and I'd love to kind of jump into it. But before we do that, Ankita, I'd love for you to kind of give us a reintroduction. I don't think I can do justice by giving an introduction about you. So let's start right there.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you everyone, for joining in this afternoon, evening. Um, I know we did a class a few months ago. So hopefully the idea is to go, deep diver today and kind of see what else we can cover in terms of, evaluation. But maybe quickly, I'll give everyone a quick brief about myself. And yeah, I can see that question in the chat box about the Y Combinator letter everyone is talking about. So yeah, we can actually chat about that as well. So today I'm, planning to do maybe just the kind of the session itself for 30, 40 minutes. But I actually would love to actually open up the room post that. Let's put our videos on, let's talk. And, I'm open to discussing questions and etc. So very quickly about me, I have been in the venture, private equity, and tech kind of entrepreneurial space for the past 14, 15 years. I have lived across US, UK, India, Singapore. I kind of, I'm an engineer, but, and then I moved over to doing my kind of MBA in finance, and then moved on to, getting my first job at private equity. So I just want to highlight the fact that I am someone who's kind of lived the life cycle of, working professionally in private equity and venture to then kind of moving over to the accelerators, family office, angel investing, and then obviously having my own fund for the past 7 years. So I've lived through that life cycle, and I think it was really important to share that journey. And I think that's when I said, I'd love to do these kind of angel investing masterclasses and share that journey of angel investing to fund management, and also kind of bring a very long-term perspective into investments. But yeah, very quickly. So I've worked in private equity in London for a fund called Oreos Capital. That was a $2 billion fund focused on the emerging markets. Was in London for 5 years with them. Very quickly, then kind of after 4 or 5 years, said, okay, I love the impact and scale that capital can bring to companies, but would love to see what's happening in the venture space, what's happening in emerging tech. I guess the engineer in me came out. And that's when I kind of moved to Singapore, India. And I, discovered the venture space by joining as a mentor to a few accelerators, started angel investing. I also set up my own small tech fund to invest in Singapore, Philippines, India, US. That fund was called Talons Capital. It was also the venture arm of our own family office that we have. And I started looking at early stage B2B, B2C investments, tech focused, tech enabled, a lot of B2B SaaS, cloud, mobile, but also consumer platforms. And with that journey, I also launched an accelerator program called Wavemaker Labs in Singapore, which was one of the first accelerators or the group of accelerators to get funded by the Singapore government. And that did really well. And through that, we made a few notable investments, but also from the tech fund, we made a very notable investments like companies like Unifor here in the US. I was one of the first investors. They just, they're now valued at 2.5 billion. They just raised a Series E. I also invested in a company in India called Licious, which became a unicorn last year. So it was India's first D2C unicorn. And from the accelerator, we made an investment in a company called Luxola, which became Asia's biggest online cosmetic store. And that got sold to Sephora. And that's when I, just with everything that I was doing and what I was seeing, I said, why aren't there more women entrepreneurs? Why am I the only one who's mostly there in these meetings, and why aren't women entrepreneurs getting more opportunities to to pitch, get funded, etc. So that's when I said, I am going to launch a fund and a platform where women can get access to capital in communities. And that's when I launched a Saha fund, which was in 2014-15, and it was actually the first in India, Asia, but one of the first globally as well, to be an early stage venture fund looking at women in tech. So started investing in seed stage companies led by women, focused on women, B2B, B2C across, set up a $10 million fund, which was raised by individuals, family offices, other institutional funds put in money as well. I started investing in US and India. From that fund, we've had 5 exits. The rest of them have had up rounds. And now that fund is fully invested. It's in exit mode. And just last year, I've launched my second women fund called Stronger Ventures. This is a much bigger fund. So we have a US dedicated fund, an India dedicated fund, a cross-border fund. It's a $100 million fund to invest pre-seed onwards. Again, female-led, female-focused, but looking at companies in the areas of fintech, future of work, health, consumer, and Web 3.0. And, of course, I've just been very passionate about funding female founders, but through Stronger Ventures, we are building a very strong platform and community as well of where we're getting women involved as advisors, mentors, board members, venture scouts, investors, etc. And that's where we're working very closely with Naimisha and Products by Women as well to kind of bring out that in the community and bring out all these, kind of programs, etc. And yeah, so that's where we are today. We've also just launched our pre-seed accelerator called Arise, which is investing in pre-seed companies. And we've just opened up our application. So it's a 3-month program that is going to be a very engaged, knowledge-driven, bootcamp, deep, kind of insights-driven program, but with a lot of focus on community and investor intelligence when it comes to female founders. So that's what we're building at Stronger Ventures, and very excited to kind of share my angel investing insights today. So maybe I'll just start off with the class today. Naimisha, if that's okay.
Sounds great.
Great. So, we had a session that we took a few months ago. So that was kind of the angel investor kind of 101. And just for the benefit of everyone here, I'm going to anyway kind of do a recap, an intro. And we're going to cover stuff like, why become an angel investor? How do you build your portfolio, the investment process? But a lot of focus today will be on evaluation of startups and startup valuations, especially in pre-seed and seed. And then I'll probably just introduce you to the concepts of, kind of the different investment structures, notes, et cetera, and rights. But maybe I plan to do a more detailed session around term sheets, legal agreements in the next session. So, when we did the last session, we wanted to kind of give a primer on angel investing. And, just along this journey of giving this masterclass and today, we want to be able to cover, stuff like deal negotiation, portfolio construction, the motivations on why to become an angel investor, why it's important that it's not just capital, but much more. And I think, of course, what's really important is how do you evaluate startups as an angel investor? For maybe some of you have already invested, maybe it's the first time, but I think it's really important that you get access to the right deal flow. You're able to have the right information to make that investment decision. And how do you go about that, right? And of course, then the legal and the paperwork which follows, and then what happens, thereafter in the future of your investment. That's what we want to be able to cover in these modules. Um, yeah. So as I mentioned, what, how, why you want to invest, how do you how you structure your portfolio, how do you find opportunities, diligence, risk versus returns, and exit. So I want to just quickly go to this slide. We did this last time as well, but I think it's very important that you realize why you should become an angel investor and, the motivations behind it, the reasons for it. Very simply put, an angel investor is someone who comes in very early on into a company's, kind of journey and life cycle in that sense. And they're pretty much the first investors that come in outside of the founder's own money or, whatever. So you come in at the same stage as, say, family and friends, or the founder is putting in the next round of money, but you're basically the first investor. And that's why I guess you're called an angel. So it's kind of high risk, but also high reward. And just very quickly, I think what's really interesting is, and so of course you want to invest, and you invest why? To basically make profits, get return on investments, allocate your capital. But for me, I think what was most exciting about being an angel investor was everything else around it, which was basically, I get to be in this community, or most and so many times in this room full of the smartest minds in terms of investors, but also these amazing entrepreneurs who are coming and sharing their idea, their businesses, the different business models, the markets they're looking at, and basically you are learning every day, right? So I think that was one of my most exciting things of becoming an investor first on, that I was able to learn from the smartest people in the room. I was able to also share my knowledge. I was able to give back to the ecosystem, right? And what was also exciting was the fact that I was able to really kind of leverage my skills, my kind of sector expertise, my work experience back with these startups. I'm not saying that this has to be applicable to everyone. You can be as passive as you want, just as a capital investor. But I think to truly enjoy the experience of being an angel investor is to be part of that angel investing and entrepreneurial community, right? So I think when you start thinking of it from that perspective, you start looking at it and engaging with it in a very different way. And then you also realize that over time, you are able to add value to startups that possibly, are in sector that maybe you're already working in, or maybe you're very curious and interested in those sectors and have kept up to date with knowledge in what's happening in that space, right? Or it's a space that, say, you're really interested in, maybe don't know much about it, but you're really keen on it. And it's something that, you've read about it because it's trending, or it's the industry kind of, hot sector space to look at. And that's why you want to know. But either way, you want to do something about it, right? So that's why you're looking to invest and engage with startups. I also like to say that angel investing is a great first step for a lot of people who want to be part of the financial ecosystem as their career or full-time job, right? I think it's great to have it on your resume or portfolio to say that, hey, I've done these investments, I've mentored these startups, I'm a mentor at this accelerator, or I'm a venture scout for this fund, and I'm looking to grow my career in VC and PE now. Or you may want to actually start your own syndicate, and then that thereafter then actually start your own fund. So whatever it may be, I think there's something for everyone. And of course, at the end of the day, I think, if you kind of hit it right and you do it right, you will make those outsized returns, right? You will at some point hopefully get those stars and unicorns. So I think it's on the whole such an exciting journey from a knowledge perspective, career perspective, from a perspective of creating partnerships and building a community and ecosystem around yourself and what you're doing. And like I said, just to add on to that, it's not just capital, it's more than capital, right? It's more than financial capital. I think it's the fact that you can take on actual roles, whether it be, something you're doing outside of your main job, or you want to make it your main job. It can happen where you can actually get on board with these startups if, it permits from both ends, as an advisor, as a mentor. And what we like to see also is that, of course, these startups, when you engage with them first on, are very early. but they will scale at some point if they're doing well, and you could possibly be on their board, and you could actually get rewarded for the same as well, right? But you can help in fundraising, maybe if you know other LPs. You can maybe help them with recruitment and hiring, advice. Maybe you're an enterprise client. You could actually make introductions to other potential clients and get them with their initial customers, and really help them basically in the entire venture development process. So there's a lot that you can do beyond capital. And again, I like to repeat myself maybe, but that's the most exciting part of being an investor, I feel. So here I want to talk about that, what companies do angels invest in and what stage? So these are just some of the kind of key points that I want to highlight. Again, as I said earlier, it's a high risk and high reward space. It's also illiquid for some time. It's not like your public markets where whenever you feel like you could probably realize your portfolio and exit out. So that's why it's kind of high risk in that sense as well. So it's something that, you want to keep aside some part of your asset allocation to, not a lot of it initially. Of course, as you get comfortable with it, you can definitely increase your exposure to the sector. But I would suggest that 5 to 10% of your asset allocation could go to venture and angel investments. And please remember that these investments will be illiquid for some time. Of course, the great thing in today's market is in that sense that what we've seen over the years, the ecosystem has matured. So it's not like you're holding on to something for 10 years plus. Of course, if they're doing well and you think they're just growing, immensely and you want to keep holding on, that's a different story. But on the whole, for typical angels, you're able to see exits now in 3 to 5 years or even earlier secondary options if they're scaling very well, right? But, when you're looking to invest in a startup, you should always realize that it's not that marginal profit or that marginal acceleration that will make a difference. You're going to get returns. And that with that entrepreneur, when that entrepreneur has a vision or that business has a vision or has the potential to deliver 10 times and more, right? So you don't think, okay, he's going to give me 2 times or 1 times. You should invest in businesses that you feel, okay, they can even do something like 100 times, right? So the vision and the mission has to be really big for your investment to make you money, right? And I like to say that, always think about why you're investing and try to invest in differentiated ideas. Like we always say, and you will see funds saying this or people saying this, that we invest in, first movers or differentiated products or products that are maybe going into a new market or they're using a new technology, right? So it's very emerging, it's very disruptive. So something which is new, because in the end, you want to invest in something that will make an impact, a difference. There's a need, not just that it's a me too or a copy or one more, right? Even if it is something which is already in the market and you're coming in with something else very similar, but it should have a differentiated moat, right? So I think that's very important to look and understand what the business is doing, underlying business. And just to add on, when we come in as angels, we're coming in very early. So a lot of your bet is on the entrepreneur as well, right? So I think it's very important that you believe the entrepreneur himself can deliver this unique idea and that he has a team or an advisory that is capable of delivering that, right? It's very different when you come in, later at maybe Series B, because at that time, the team is already formed, the idea is proven, it's post-revenue, they just need more money to grow, right? But I think initially it's a lot based on the idea, but the founder as well. So just, look into that. I get asked the question as, how should I start my angel investment journey? How many investments should I make? Where should I invest? So one is try to invest in sectors, like I said, that either are trending, or you're very curious about them, or you have great experience in them or in that sector. I would start off by saying that maybe, say if you have kept that money aside, try to make at least 3 investments in the first year. If you have more money, or if you're okay and you're okay to take more risk, you can increase that number, but maybe start off from 1 to 3 investments and then take it from there. But I'd like to kind of always make you guys think that you have a portfolio of 10, because fund investing is also based on this portfolio theory. right? Where you're going to have this bucket of companies that are going to do, you'll have your one kind of outsized return or two of them, and et cetera. And then you'll have a bunch of averages and few of them which won't make it, right? So if you have that portfolio of companies, you can diversify your risk as well, right? And I think that's what's important. And one more note that I wanted to say was that I know when we come in as angels, we come in, at the first round, ideally mostly the pre-seed rounds. But if the company is doing well, and if you also believe in that, right, that they're doing well, they're tracking, and you've seen some great kind of metrics coming out, great founder performance, response, etc., and the market is doing well, and they're raising the next round. If you can, try to reinvest in the next round, so follow on, right? And there's another slide that I'm going to go into as to what are the typical sizes and ranges in pre-seed and seed. But you have different options, from investing via syndicates to an actual angel round stitched up by the founder himself through your own connection or through a network. And I think you can invest as low as 5,000 in a company to 25,000, but just on average, companies like that if you can come in with at least 25,000 minimum ticket size as an angel investor, but you can go up to 5,000, as low as 5,000. I know platforms like AngelList and Republic, you can put as low as $100 to $1,000, but I don't consider that, as, to be honest, as very professional angel investing. I think it's a great way for the companies who list on those platforms to kind of engage with community and bring awareness to their products. I think a lot of companies that raise through syndicates are using it as a marketing tool earlier on. Of course, later on, it's more allocation and asset allocation. But I feel as an angel investor, if you want to learn and if you want to be able to engage with the founder, please try to invest directly through a network or through a fund or an accelerator, right, where you can build that out. And we'll talk more about that as well. And yeah, and again, I've highlighted it. Invest in more companies if you can, where you can bring your experience, strategy, or curiosity or connections. Because long term, if you're thinking of this long term and you want to do it a little more seriously, it makes a huge difference. Because over time, what happens is you also make a name for yourself as an investor who is able to add value to founders, and that attracts more deal flow to you as well, by the way. So yeah, so this is some of the kind of my tips and insights for how, why, what to invest in. This is kind of what I just covered, saying that if you build a portfolio of 10 companies, this is how you can expect your kind of portfolio to look. You'll have one of those amazing home runs, unicorns, 3-4 of them will do average, and then 4 or 5 of them might actually just shut down or just be like one times or something. But which is why it's good to have a portfolio of companies to diversify your risk and also diversify your exposure to different sectors, different type of entrepreneurs, stages, etc. Okay, so now I wanted to kind of bring us to the investment process itself, right? So just kind of give you the key steps on how the process works. Of course, one is where you've said this founders reached out to you, or you've come across this deal. You're going to maybe do a preliminary screening of it and say like, oh, this deal is nice. This is a good sector. I like what she's doing. Looks interesting. Maybe I'll listen to her pitch, or, I'll do a one-on-one meeting or listen to her. Maybe you came across the startup through a network or syndicate, so you're kind of already looking at the pitch. That's when you'll see a detailed pitch or a deck from the founder, and maybe you would have asked more questions. You like them, you want to know more. That's when you kind of say, hey, I want to kind of see if I can invest, and I'm going to start my diligence. And that's when you kind of go in and you look at their metrics, you look at their business model, what they're doing. And I'm going to go to the next slide, where how do we evaluate these startups? But that's where the diligence basically starts. If you are knowledgeable and you're comfortable, you can do it yourself. Or if you're doing this investment as part of a group or a fund or a network, they will do it for you. And a lot of times in these networks, there will also be a lead investor who will be known, who would have maybe found this deal, who's an expert in the sector. They'll take care of everything most of the time. And usually they're notable people who you can trust and you can follow that, okay, they're doing the right job. But it's good to also have your own checklist so that you can even maybe ask the lead the questions, or even be able to ask the founder the right questions, right? Usually after all that, a term sheet will be given to the founder. The founder and the lead or the investors will negotiate that term sheet. The investment round will be put together, say the founder wanted to raise $1 million, all that will be come together. And all that will be in the documents. Those legal documents will be drafted, the full legal document, post the term sheet, and then the money gets transferred and you close. And of course, you get allocated your stake or shares in this company. But let's go into more details on how do you evaluate startups, right? Yeah. So when you're an angel investor, how are you evaluating the startup is, I think, quite a big question, because sometimes you might not know. And these are some of the kind of like the 8 things I've put there, but it depends on what stage you are of investment. You might ask more detailed or less questions, or you're okay with the lead, like I said, in doing the diligence part of it. But again, point number 1, I always like to look at the team and the idea. Very important is the team, because they're so early on. Like I said, you're betting a lot on the entrepreneur, right? He hasn't necessarily probably already proven the idea out. Maybe he's had one good customer. Yes, he has his first 100 customers, but he needs to get those 1,000 million customers. He needs to get those 10 enterprise clients. So you need to so you're betting on him. And of course, the idea. So I think it's important to vet out who the founder is. Does he have relevant experience? If he doesn't, then who's on his co-founding team? Why does he believe he can do this? Does he have the right advisory, etc., right? And I also like to see who else is investing. Sometimes if there's some great angels or stellar funds who have come in, then that, okay, this has something behind it, because he has a good investor team also behind him, right? Business relevance, again, I think it's important that startups are actually solving a unique problem and creating a solution for it, right? You need to be creating something differentiated, something which is actually solving a problem out there, right? So I think it's very important that the business is very relevant to the target market they're addressing. You would have always heard of this term, maybe TAM and GTM, etc., right? So whenever as investors, we'll ask founders at saying, okay, you're building this product and this problem, who is the customer? What is the target market? Right? What is the total addressable market? That needs to be a sizable number for this kind of company to really scale up. Scale is very important, right? So I think it's very important that you look at the potential, the differentiated product problem, how scalable it is, what market it's addressing, and how relevant it is today, right? So that's when I come into market size. And what is the go-to-market strategy? When are they going to start making money? What is their kind of business model? Is it building the community out first and then monetizing it, or are they already monetizing it? Is it B2B, B2C? You need to ask those questions and kind of go through that, right? Again, what is the stage and maturity of the business? Is it, something which is still an idea stage? Do they have an MVP? Have they all done a pilot with a client? And do they have a new contract in sight? Pre-revenue or post-revenue, etc., right? So I think all those things you have to kind of go through and see, depending, and this is very different to be honest, for the type of company, the sector they're addressing, the stage they're at, right? So a lot of that is very relevant to the company type. And in my future kind of, classes, which we'll do the next one, we'll go into case studies of different types of sectors and the different kind of companies and what they should have at each stage for you to kind of be able to evaluate them. And I think what's really important is competitive advantage. And you need to ask the founders, I don't say always, but sometimes you need to ask the founders very openly, what is your competitive advantage? Who else do you think out there is doing this? So many times you will hear founders saying, oh, we're the only ones. I mean, in today's market, it's not necessarily possible that you're the only one. And if you think you're the only one, that means the founder has not done their job, right? I mean, they haven't done their homework. They haven't researched as to what is out there. how they are differentiated. So I think differentiation, competitive advantage, how aware the founder is of the competition, how are they different and what are they doing about it is very important. And in the end, the exit potential. See, in the end of the day, you are investing and he is raising money from people, promising the fact that there's going to be an exit, or there's going to be something, in the future where, say he's going to give you an opportunity to exit out, right? Otherwise, why would you invest money, right? You're not here to give a grant or just kind of go out there and say, hey, I like you, so I'm giving you money. No. So I think it's very important that, companies are evaluated based on their exit potential as well. Are they building kind of a product out just for Apple, or do they have, now in today's world, to be honest, I think there are many more options to exit. Listing and going public is something that, anyone is doing now in that sense. You would have heard of SPACs as well. So I think there's so many more opportunities for people to exit out. So that's a good, it's a good outcome for a company. But I think more than anything, based on the sector and business model, I think companies need to know who they're building for, what they're building for, and what's the horizon for them to be aware of that, right? So I think if you look at these kind of key points whenever you're evaluating a startup, that will be very I think that will give you a lot of information that you can use to make the right decision. Now, on a different note, of course, as an angel investor, and I always, want to compare two types of angel investors. So one is very passive, say new, right? Wants to do it, but say is very new to it. And one is someone maybe who isn't, but just say we kind of in our today profile, say someone who's very new. As I mentioned, you might invest through an angel list or Republic or some syndicate, or you've joined an angel network, or through some business community or something you have come across a deal. A lot of times these companies will have, say, someone who's a lead angel or a lead investor. And if that's the case, then they will be taking care of a lot of the due diligence work and a lot of the kind of the terms in the agreement and in the legal agreement, etc. as well, right? So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the whole process or take a lead on that, right? So I think that is taken care of. And I would, to be honest, I think as if I was investing for the first time, because that's also what I think I did. I mean, it just so happened that, of course, I came from the professional academic background of investing. So I had, I guess, the know-how and the basics. But for example, when I, moved over to venture, and I said, it's very different also being professionally in a job to versus actually going and investing your money, right? So when I moved over to venture and I said, I'm going to start investing myself also from my own money, I joined those networks, I joined those accelerators and started talking to people, etc. right? And then I realized, oh, there's this one guy who always gets the best deals, or this guy gets this great access to founders. So you kind of meet that. So I think you need to kind of be in the community to know what's happening. And a lot of that initial stuff then gets taken care of. Okay, so today I also wanted to talk about valuations, because I think a lot of times there's a lot of questions. One is, of course, how do you do due diligence and etc. But how do you also know what is the correct valuation? So to be honest, it's not an art, it's not a science. There is, some basics that go around it, but there's a lot of other things that really kind of define that or go about it, right? So one is, of course, how in a public markets portfolio, you have your PE ratios, you have your stock price, you have everything right there for you to make certain decisions. This is not the same at all, right? These are private companies. These are early stage companies who probably have never been valued at, right? So you have to do that entire kind of homework yourself in that sense. And most of the time, the founders, when they're coming and pitching to you, they have done that homework for you, where they're going to come and say, hey, I'm raising money at 2 million, or I'm raising money at 5 million. But it's for you as a founder to kind of be able to understand that and know that, okay, hey, this is okay, this is in the right range, or this is like extremely, irregular, this is not a right valuation, and to be able to question the founder. I think the idea is to equip yourself with the the skills or the basic knowledge to at least come across someone who can ask the right questions. So I think, it's important to understand what is the company's business, sector, industry. And I think you can read a lot more about this through just so much information out there. And you have access to these portals like Crunchbase and PitchBook, but also you'll be hearing articles about, okay, this company raised money at this valuation. So what happens is over time, you'll realize that there are certain sectors or industries based on the market condition that might be raising money at a particular valuation or at a particular kind of run rate. What is that, right? And then you'll get to know, and there's one more slide now where we'll discuss averages and ranges. And I think that will give you a good ballpark as to what are the usual valuations. But to be honest, a lot of times the valuations are, especially in venture and private markets, is based on what's happening in the market and what peers have raised and what is the industry and ecosystem and investor sentiment. Like, for example, during COVID, because everything went online, we saw the whole kind of, immense tech acceleration and tech boom. And the fact that people wanted to invest in all the kind of tech stocks out there, but also the fact that certain kind of, sectors in the venture space became really hot, like say, ed tech, because everyone, of course, was, online, they were kind of skilling online, school was online, something like a Zoom, so something like a remote collaboration tool got funded at a very high valuation. So given what's happening in the market, a lot of sectors and trends come, and then they kind of blow out that sector. So, healthcare, right? And then, of course, we have seen the rise of so many of these online first brands, like D2C brands, which are basically going online, social and digital first. I think a lot of that got funded at very high valuations, which probably wouldn't have had been funded years ago at the same valuation, right? So what's happening around it, and what also happens is that suddenly, and then what happens is because of that industrial, that sector trending, a lot of companies in that space get valued at a certain valuation. So then that becomes kind of like the norm. So that's kind of the comparables and competitive landscape and the market conditions. Also, to be honest, what happens sometimes is maybe you're not coming in at the first round, maybe. So there's already, you have a benchmark of the last round. So maybe he raised a family and friends round at, say, I don't know, $1 million or $2 million, and now he's come to you at $5 million. So you know that the least valuation is that $1 million or $2 million. It won't go below that. It has to be above, and that, of course, that is for you to negotiate now. And then, of course, as I said, if you're coming in as an angel, you could possibly be a lead angel yourself. So maybe you have been the one who negotiated the valuation or the round, but most of the time they might be someone, say if you're new, who's leading this round, and they have kind of defined the valuation, right? So that it's kind of already set out there. And of course, there's a lot of instruments there where, today's age, you don't have to set the valuation as well. So sometimes you would have heard the safe notes and convertible notes, which are very common actually in early stage, especially in the US, not so much outside of US yet. There's a lot of people still do valued rounds. But here what happens is you come in at a convertible with a certain cap saying that, okay, fine, maybe I'll raise this convertible note today at a 5 million cap. That means that is the maximum value for you, but it could also be a discount to the next round, right? So at some point you've locked the value for yourself, but you also could have an option to get a discount to the next round. It depends on how you've negotiated that. And that's something that I want to do in the next class, because I'm going to kind of walk you through terms of the term sheet and different structures and notes. But that's kind of how you would look at valuations in that sense. Yeah, I think this will be a very helpful slide for a lot of you. This gives you like typical ranges of what's happening in different stages. So you would have heard of companies at pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, right? And of course onwards. But just from an angel investor perspective, you will most probably always, as an angel, coming in at pre-seed and seed, and mostly at pre-seed, right? If you're a very small ticket size and this is your first kind of investment. So I'm going to focus on those two. But just to kind of give you a ballpark, usually pre-seed valuations can range anywhere up to 5 million. I'll be honest, I think all of last year and I think the year before, when it was pretty much the peak of venture investing and everything was going really well, I think most companies raised pre-seed at 5 million. But it's very normal for pre-seed to start from 1 million onwards. And a lot of accelerators, because they do a lot of work with these companies earlier on, et cetera, they're able to lock in valuations between 1 to 2 million. Again, it can be very different depending on say the stage or type or and what kind of contributes to the factor for it to be very different. I mean, you can have crazy valuations of a pre-seed being even 10 to 20 million because maybe it's like an ex serial entrepreneur, ex Googler or something like that, but that's something different and we can talk about that as well. But on the whole, this is the valuation range. In that kind of round, the founder is probably raising money anywhere from 150K to $1 million in a pre-seed round, and you're getting an allocation within that. As I said, it depends on the founders and how the round is being formed. You could invest as low as 5K to 25K, but I've seen that founders do prefer 25K onward checks in that sense. But of course, if they are open and would like to open it up to 5K onward checks, they can. Again, if you invest through syndicates or in this online listing platforms, etc., you might even be able to put like, I think just $1,000 or $2,000, etc. But I don't know if you guys have invested already in AngelList or something, but a lot of them, like, you won't even know who the founder is, meaning I don't think you would have ever met the founder or get to meet them. And I think some of them even say that please do not contact the founder. So it's a very, what to say, like, you are not getting really involved with the founder and their business too much. It's literally like you're just allocating money somewhere and leaving it. Typically, this pre-seed rounds, the companies will raise money from people like angel, like yourselves, syndicates like the ones I've been talking about, angel networks, accelerators. There are now a lot of pre-seed funds. Like, we also invest in pre-seed at Stronger because pre-seed is kind of like the new seed, and I think the ecosystem has matured. So everyone wants to get in earlier. And family offices, right? Family offices are like, Ultra H and I pooled money. They form their family office and they come in, and friends and family. Pre-seed can range so the stage of a business when they're at pre-seed could range anywhere from idea, late idea, MVP, pilot to post revenue. You can see across this. I think before we saw a lot of pre-revenue companies at pre-seed, but I think that's changing. And especially I also like to invest on companies that either have had a pilot, like, so if it's a B2B company, they have a client or they have a contract in place, or if it's a kind of consumer company, they definitely have, say, the MVP or the product ready. They've tested it out again. They've got pre-orders. So you kind of come in at a time where they're going to just kind of capture their first revenue. That's when I like to come in, but you can come in anytime from idea onwards. Then there is seed stage. This is typically raised anywhere from 6 to 12 months of raising pre-seed, depends again, on the company and the conditions and everything. Here, the valuations are anywhere from 5 to 10 million. The round size can be anywhere from 1 to 3 million, meaning how much money the kind of founder is raising. And here, the minimum ticket size, I think it depends completely here. It depends on how much they're raising. Usually they like angels to put in much more. But again, I think they'll be open to people putting in 25K onwards. That's a good, decent size. So you can come into a seed round again at 25K onwards, even though the founder might be getting more checks of 50K, 100K, etc. And again, at this round, you'll probably have more institutional capital coming in, meaning from seed funds, and more kind of, as I said, higher check angels, and kind of family offices. And this is mostly post revenue and post product and customer fit. And then you have Series A onwards, which most angels won't necessarily come in like a typical angel, but maybe a very prolific angel, a bigger check angel can come in and back the company. And of course, you have your early and growth stage funds coming in, family offices, etc. And these are companies typically raise Series A when they're, doing at least a minimum $1 million ARR or kind of 100K monthly run rate. So I think the minute you hit $1 million in revenues, you can, very comfortably raise Series A. Again, very different from sector to sector, etc. But these are the kind of, normal ballparks. And then of course you have your Series B onwards, which is, you can see valuations anywhere from 20 million onwards. They could be raising 10 million onwards of things. And there you have a lot of growth stage funds come in, private equity players come in early, companies even are able to list, they can even go out and get debt. And usually you see companies at Series B, kind of doing 3 million to 5 million ARR. But this is kind of just like a good ballpark. But, I have to, like say a lot of these things might be different. I have another slide for that. You might have certain valuation differences, or, for example, you see every Y Combinator company coming out and raising money at 20-30 million versus probably a similar company raising still at 5-10. That is just Y Combinator. I don't know how sustainable that is also, to be very honest, but I think they've done an amazing job of building an amazing brand. And of course, they've had some of the most amazing companies come out of their accelerator, like Stripe and Airbnb and DoorDash and all that, right? So they've had those great companies come out, but it's also, I think, a function of the fact that portfolio theory, like their recent batch, because they went virtual and all this time they were offline, but I think after COVID they went virtual, they had like 418 startups in one cohort, right? So things like that, right? So I mean, and of course, it is true that a lot of companies get undervalued. Diverse founders, women entrepreneurs, people of color, underrepresented regions. For example, if maybe you're in the Midwest and you're not necessarily an SFO in NYC. I mean, I just recently met, and I keep meeting startups, of course, but I just met yesterday 2 founders who moved from Seattle to the Bay Area because they're like, we weren't necessarily able to fund or get the valuation, and then we moved here and we got our valuation, right? So those things make a difference. As I said, you could be maybe a Stanford, Harvard alumni, and then someone who kind of funds you at a higher valuation, so that makes a difference. And of course, there could be some, you could be a stellar founder who's already raised money, so then the normal kind of methods don't apply to you, and people just want to fund you at whatever kind of funding or valuation you're coming at. And of course, like I said, the market system conditions and the ecosystem trends all kind of define certain sectors as well. But of course, I think if you're a tech company, you have IP, have the potential to show scale, you'll always kind of be able to fetch a much better valuation. I'm going to probably stop for now. And I think we always have less time. But I'm going to kind of I just want to say that I'm going to cover investment instruments, investor rights, term sheet, and legal docs next time, because we're always less time. And I want to just quickly maybe open up the room for 10-15 minutes.
Ankita, thank you so much for always spending time with us and dropping gems. Like today was incredibly helpful. I personally learned a lot. So thank you for being here. But before we do
Thank
open it
you.
up for questions, I actually wanted to take a moment for you to kind of talk a little bit more about Arise and Stronger and
Yes.
how you're making investing a little bit more accessible for everybody who has the potential and the capacity to actually be a part of thinking about angel investing.
Yeah. No, great question, Amisha. And again, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited that we're able to bring this together with products by women. Very quickly, like I mentioned, so Stronger Ventures, we're a fund investing in pre-seed or early stage companies. But what we've done is we've just launched and opened applications for our Arise pre-seed accelerator program. So applications are open all of May, June. We're doing a bunch of events as well, by the way. So if founders, apply earlier, they get to also be invited to these events. But a lot of them will be in June, July, which will basically help us kind of, choose the top. In the end, we're going to choose top 10 to 15 companies to invest in. But what we're doing is we're including the top 100 or top 50 into our community and giving them access to sessions, boot camps, certain benefits, etc. And of course, they'll always be part of our community. But then we choose 10 to 15 to invest in. And that cohort will basically go live in August. So August, September, October will be the 3-month cohort, and there'll be a demo day in November. It's a really engaged 3-month program, full of your usual knowledge sessions, but a lot of focus on, your focus sector, deep dives, what functional expertise you're looking to build, what tech expertise are you looking to build, your product stack, your cloud, your AWS, your UI, UX design. We're going to also be very mindful of the kind of companies we bring in so that they are able to learn from each other. we sat and we interviewed almost 40 founders and more from different programs, and just their learnings and what they would have liked better or what they really enjoyed. And I think we've done a really good job of bringing that all in. So I think one of the differentiators is the fact that our event, our whole program will be very female founder and, female economy focused. So how do you kind of build for female founders in that sense? And I think what women have always kind of lacked historically is access to investors and professional communities. That's what we're bringing here. Global connects to peers from across the world. We also tag you to advisor and a mentor from the stronger team, but also from our expert network, who will be with you throughout, right? So it's very engaged in that sense. And of course, we put in capital anywhere up to 150K, but if all goes well, we also follow on. What we've also done is, along with this, so this is something for the founders out there, but from the investors' perspective, at the stronger level, we've opened up kind of like 30, 40 slots for early stage investors to also invest along with us in our fund if they would like. Or what we're announcing very soon, and we're very excited about it, Naimisha and me, is that we're opening up a Venture Scout program. So what we're also doing is that, and we'll have this up on our website next week, but I'll share a link with you so maybe you can just kind of show your interest in that. We're opening up a Venture Scout program where we're going to invite people from our kind of classes or people from our network to join us as a Venture Scouts. You can help us, look at deals. You want to learn from us, be part of the due diligence process, etc. But we'll also basically open up a very small allocation from our accelerator companies if you want to invest in them, which usually you don't get the opportunity to do so, but you'll get through us. And we're basically able to get companies at a very good valuation because we're working with them so much. So these are all companies that probably will be anywhere up to 5 million, but a lot of them will be around 2 million or sub of that, right? So we're going to open up that. And I think that'll be a great learning for anyone who wants to invest, who wants to be involved with the founders, who wants to learn about our process, to really kind of engage with us and these founders. So we're opening up these opportunities because I'm really passionate about building communities around diverse founders and women. And I think it's really important that even something like venture capital investing or fund investing is accessible, right? It's not necessarily reserved only for the ultra HNIs or HNIs, but anybody can invest as low as whatever, 5 to 10,000, right? So that's what we're open up at Stronger, but also to invest along with us if you come on board as a Venture Scout.
I absolutely love that. So everybody who's interested in learning a little bit more, feel free to reach out directly to Ankita or stay tuned for that information. But with that, let's take a couple of questions in the interest of time. We have about 5 minutes and maybe we can run a little over. But Nikita had a bunch of questions. Nikita, I've given you the option of unmuting yourself and switching on your camera. So feel free to do so if you're still around here.
Hey, hi Namisha. Hey, hi Ankita.
Hey,
I am
Nikita.
also kind of working and attending this event, and thanks a lot for having this event. Really learned a lot of things around angel investment, which I was not. And before coming here, I also saw your first part, so kind of got a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience around it. I have one quick question. The first question was around that Y Combinator email, or I mean, everywhere people were resharing and people were talking about it, and I'm not sure should we believe or is it prediction? Obviously they are doing it, but it's Y Combinator, right? So everyone is okay, should we believe or should we not? And if we believe it, then at least 6 to 12 months, as per the prediction, we, even if we are starting today, we should not think about getting funding in any way, because that's the prediction they have kind of gated out.
Yeah. That's a good question. I know so many people are talking about it. And I think from a founder's perspective, it does come across as a very scary scenario. But I think it's also because maybe the YC, founders and team really just want to prepare the founders for the worst. I don't think it's completely applicable or it's going to apply to everyone in that sense. But the truth is that especially in the US, what happens in the public markets defines the investor sentiment throughout the ecosystem. And of course, the public markets have performed very badly and it's very horrible right now. So from that sense, I think people, what always happens in a kind of a downturn is that people stop excessive spending and investing. And as venture, VCs, we also sometimes, if we have extra money or dry powder, we like to invest maybe more experimentally or into new sectors that we want to explore, but we're more open to investing into new things in that sense. But what happens in a downturn is that then we really start questioning as to what our core businesses, solutions, or real needs today to invest in. So then the kind of perspective changes as well, right? So if for example, for you as well as an individual, let's say if you have limited money, you won't necessarily go splurge or go buy something which is nice. You'll spend on something which you definitely need to survive, right? So that's what's going to happen. And a lot of money, what happens is also then VCs will restrict for their current portfolio to back the ones already in their portfolio, versus maybe going on and giving fresh rounds of money to investors. So that's going to change, right? So I think definitely the market is very, it's not the best market at all. And of course, it's the worst right now to go out and just kind of get funded very easily. But I think, I always say this, from an investor perspective, because I've been talking to a lot of investors, everybody has the dry powder, which they have saved up, right? So I think if it's a good business, something which people definitely like, and it gets, it makes sense, it will get funded. Only thing is you probably have to try harder. And of course, now what's happened is it's become from a founder's market to an investor's market. So the valuations also might be more realistic and sustainable.
Thank you, Ankita, for that. I have one quick question more, which I asked is like for the program for application form, because I was going through the website and I learned a little bit more. So it don't says, because my startup isn't more in edtech, it's not related to fintech and the other things being mentioned on the website. So is it fine if I still go ahead and apply for it and try my luck? Or do you think that you guys are not at all focusing on like even going for startups which are other than the brackets being mentioned on the website?
No, we're very open to it, to be honest. We'd like for most of our startups to be within those areas. But like I said, I think it's a good exercise, or it's a good thing to kind of sign up, because you get to then be part of the boot camps and community events. And of course, if it's something that we can talk about, we'd love to talk and see how it could possibly fit in us, or how we can help you either way, right? So I think you should go ahead and apply.
Perfect. Thank you. I will definitely fill the application and see if everything looks good.
Great. Okay. Thank you. You're on mute, Naimisha.
Sorry about that. I was saying we are at time. However, if you have a minute, we can probably take one more question before we.
Sure.
Does that sound good? Okay. So let's take the question from Harsh. Harsh, if you'd like, feel free to unmute yourself, or I can go ahead and ask your question. Oh, go. Yes, go for it.
First of all, thanks, Ankita. This is like really an awesome presentation, and I really liked and learned a lot today.
Thank you.
I was really curious to learn, first of all, what are the strategies, or how do you evaluate risk versus return when you're investing? Like, it's really hard to figure out. Like, I'm just getting started in the VC area, like VC industry, and then I'm just trying to figure out how do I actually evaluate the risk that are out there, like maybe 1 year, 5 years, down the line, and versus how do we get to evaluate you mentioned about 10x returns. So how do we actually evaluate that? Just wanted to pick up your brain on that.
Yeah. So I'll just give you some like an overview. I'd love to maybe kind of do a more detailed session around that. But basically, I think a lot of it depends on the sector and the business the company is in, right? I think from that perspective, you are able to kind of do the diligence around what is the potential of this business. I think total addressable market and your target market is very important. Like, for example, is it something which will just serve a small city or a small group of people, versus if this is something that can be built for the entire nation. I think that's important in terms of what is the target size of this business or product, right? Competitive landscape, I think we have to look at in terms of, are there many people in their market? What is the barriers to entry? I think all that, if you can kind of go through, then you will be able to kind of checklist out what are the risk and returns. But I think competition, barriers to entry, how easy it is to scale, right? I think, we look at, of course, tech focused and tech enabled companies, and that kind of brings about the scale in that sense, right? But I think it's very difficult sometimes, sometimes when you're looking at someone and looking at who investing in, say, a manufacturing business, which I don't invest in, I haven't, or something which requires a lot of setup cost and a lot of continual, kind of upgradation or investment in inventory, right? So for example, you hear about even in e-commerce or marketplaces, are they inventory or inventory, kind of less models, etc., right? Are they light models? So I think all that kind of defines. So I think there's a certain risk attached to a business model that you need to kind of go, figure out. And then a lot of things are also to do with the fact that what are the market conditions and trends around that business. Say if it's a very, kind of tech heavy product, I think it's important to get a technical kind of operator or entrepreneur or professional involved to kind of do the diligence around the tech, right? How robust is this tech? Are they using the right tools? What is their DevOps like? What is their cloud spend like? So things like that, right? So I think a lot of those things, risk and return, get defined again by the business model, the addressable market, the technology that is being used, etc., and what's happening in the market, right? So I think all these you can kind of help to kind of look at the risk and return.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you so much, Ankita. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and end the session. For all of you who, dropped all your questions and we couldn't get to it, we're really sorry about it, but do reach out to Ankita directly, and I'm sure she'll answer all the questions. And we will be sending out information via an email, so stay tuned for that. And there will be a part 3. And so, yeah, all that information will follow. So thank you again, Ankita. Anything to close out the session?
No, thank you so much again. And, thank you everyone for taking out time to, this afternoon and evening. And definitely, if you're very, serious about investing, we'd love for you to get engaged with us. We're building out this program. We're building out the Venture Scout program. There's so many opportunities for us to all engage together. So just reach out to us.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Good night.
Okay, good night. Bye.